This is a ghost story about the Civil War right here in eastern Kentucky. What's in a name? Explained in a narrative by Will Boggs. July the 2nd, 1937. Hueysville, Kentucky. Why does the name Hall almost instantly suggest a dangerous character to thousands of Kentucky hill folk? Well, it could be, for example, because of one infamous bad taught hall. Certainly the hill country cannot boast nicer people than the halls of today. The following narrative, told by Uncle William Huff, who died here at the age of 85 in 1930, may in part, at least, account for some of this imaginary toughness associated with the halls of today. During the early days of the Civil War, many roving bands of savage robbers began to operate here in the hills. Numbers of honest citizens suffered at their hands, often losing practically all they possessed. This state of affairs lasted throughout the war and even afterwards. Highest in cruelty and activity in these bands was one led by John Hall, Marshall Hall, and May Quillen. Now, I'm not a Civil War expert or a Civil War researcher by any means, but I just wanted to lay down a few facts that I found. I found a John Layden or John Hall, a Marshall Hall, and it says a soldier from the Quillen family were Confederate soldiers belonging to the 13th Cavalry, Cottle's army, who were captured and subsequently killed in a notorious wartime incident in eastern Kentucky. Historical accounts and local oral tradition from Floyd and Knott counties note that John Hall and Marshall Hall were arrested by opposing forces on Car Creek. After being taken into custody, they stopped at a local residence for dinner. Shortly after leaving, both John and Marshall, along with a fellow soldier named Quillen, were executed approximately 1.5 miles down the road near the Mallet Fork Church House. And that is according to Google AI, which there could be some truth in this. The historical school footprint sits in a classic Appalachian V-shaped valley, carved out, located southeast of the city of Vico and east of the Car Creek State Park boundaries. And I found a Henry Marshall Hall, Private 13th Cavalry, and I don't know for sure if that's the same Marshall Hall. And all the John Halls I could find, it said, were of the 4th Corps, E, F, and 13th. So there were several John Halls. And it can't be the same one listed on Find a Grave in the Hall and Watts Pratt Family Cemetery at Mallet Fork, because he passed away in 1916. I found these names on the Confederate soldiers' widows' pension list. Could this be the same ones? John H. Hall, 3 Jonathan Halls, and an Andrew Quillen. So, but Knott County It was created in 1884 from portions of Breathitt, Floyd, Letcher, and Perry County. So you can see that all this total area is included in this history. I found a Malin Quillen in Letcher County. He is listed as a farm laborer and a private in the 13th Cavalry and Private 1st Regiment Capitol Guards, and he was reported as deserted in September. But deserted don't necessarily mean, I found out that it doesn't mean that they actually went AWOL. It could mean they were sick and they never came back, or they went out on leave and they went with their families or something like that. Certain it is that 4 other men had cast their lots with the Hall Quillen clan, but their names have somehow been lost in the haze of years. It is quite probable that the Halls and Quillens so far outdid themselves in cruelty that they were soon forgotten after the strife of the war ceased to be. It is definitely known that the 3 leaders were deserters from the Confederate Army. Shortly before this desperate band was apprehended, they robbed the home of Charles Huff, brother of William Huff, who then resided on Carr's Fort in Knott County. Entering his home, they wound a hank of flax thread around his neck and swung him to a joist of the old log house, then ransacked the place, taking everything that had appealed to them in the least. Many other good citizens were subjected to treatment as bad, and often worse. Huff was left to die, but his family, when driven from the home when the pillagers arrived, luckily returned to save him in time. The series of crimes committed by these men was reported to Confederate officials, who immediately dispatched one Lieutenant Hawk or Halleck to capture and kill the pillagers. Capture of the leaders was emphasized, for they had deserted the army, an offense which meant death in those days. The 4 guerrillas, whose names are forgotten, were first to meet their doom, however. They were caught and shot to death some days before Halleck brought the savage leaders to bay. The place of this first execution is not known, but the bloodthirsty leaders were captured in the very head of Carr's Fort. A furious battle is said to have ensued before they were taken. Halleck went with his prisoners to a little log schoolhouse near the mouth of the Mallet Fork of Carr, where he held them captive until the following day. Then he slew them, much as a butcher would hogs, and he and his men went their way as though nothing had happened. An hour or so before Halleck killed him, John Hall tried to buy his life from the lieutenant. "Halleck," he said, "I'll give you $1,000 and 2 kegs of brandy, hidden on the head of beaver, if you'll spare my life." "I'll treat you right," was the cold reply. Probably no other place in all the mountains has caused so much fear of Hanks to be instilled into the very fiber of the mountain people as the little schoolhouse where this tragedy was enacted. Many tales of 3 ghost-like figures seen about the little structure soon grew into existence. Kelly Franklin, who was considered one of the most rigid followers of the truth back in Uncle William's boyhood days, declared he saw the 3 gorillas standing big as life in front of the little schoolhouse one moonlit night shortly after they were killed. The little schoolhouse has now been long gone, but tales of the ghostly figures of the 3 gorillas pass from generation to generation and show no symptoms of early death. The 13th Kentucky Cavalry, which was originally part of the 5th Kentucky Mounted Infantry, was raised by Colonel Benjamin Cottle. It was known locally as a prominent Confederate unit operating out of the rugged Appalachian borderlands of Letcher, Floyd, and surrounding eastern Kentucky counties. Private Marshall Hall is officially commemorated on historical markers dedicated to the souls of the 13 Confederate soldiers. The Quillen Connection. Multiple members of the Eastern Kentucky Quillen branch, including Malin Quillen and Andrew Drewy Quillen from Letcher County, are recorded as serving in this exact same regiment, the 13th Cavalry, illustrating how tightly knit these local guerrilla-era conflicts were among neighboring families. The exact final resting place of John Hall / Leyden Hall, Marshall Hall, and May Quillen are officially undocumented, and they lack surviving separate individual government headstones due to the brutal nature of their deaths. Because they were Confederate guerrilla-era soldiers executed in transit by opposing forces, their burial details follow a pattern common to the local history of Knott, Floyd, and Letcher counties. According to regional oral history and accounts passed down through families in the Knott, Floyd County area, the men were buried close to where they were executed. This occurred roughly a mile and a half down the road from where they were arrested on Car Creek near the old Mallet Fork Church House location. In the rugged Appalachian theater of the Civil War, soldiers killed in ambush or sudden executions were almost always buried hastily by the locals or family members in immediate unmarked graves near the site of death to prevent desecration. If their bodies were successfully recovered by their immediate families, they would have been taken to a small, isolated mountain homestead plot. In eastern Kentucky, family cemeteries are numerous, tiny, and often scattered across high ridges. Many soldiers from the 13th Kentucky Cavalry, or the older 5th Kentucky Infantry, who died in local skirmishes, rest in these private hollows. If returned to family land, they are likely resting under simple, uninscribed creek stones or river stones, which may have weathered away or become lost to time, leaving no modern written or photographic record on databases like Find a Grave. While you will not find specific GPS coordinates or carved headstones for their graves, their memory and service are collectively preserved. The 13th Cavalry Roster Project. Local historical societies and Confederate heritage organizations in eastern Kentucky hold records honoring Marshall Hall and his compatriots. Their legacy is tied to the broader memorialization of Colonel Benjamin Cottle's men, many of whom are buried in local churchyards across Letcher and Knott counties, such as the Slate Hill Cemetery, where their commander rests. In the remote and rugged terrain of Knott County, Kentucky, the Civil War was defined by vicious, localized guerrilla warfare rather than massive traditional battles. Irregular bands of pro-Confederate bushwhackers and pro-Union home guards frequently clashed over territory and supplies in the region's isolated hollers. While a specific large-scale Civil War battle did not happen on Mallet Fork, the area was heavily traversed by both factions. Local historians and family records in the Pine Top and Mallet Fork regions point to a tumultuous era where families were fiercely divided. The general vicinity of Knott County was a hotbed for these skirmishes for several key reasons. The Three Forks Battalion. The region was constantly patrolled by the Three Forks Battalion, a Union state troop force organized in late 1864 to suppress Confederate guerrilla activities and protect Unionist families. The 13th Kentucky Cavalry. Confederate sympathizers and cavalry units operated in the region. These men would often raid local farms for food and supplies, leading to reprisal killings between bitter neighbors. Confederate General John Hunt Morgan and his raiders passed through the immediate area of the Forks of the Troublesome, which is modern-day Hyman, during his various expeditions through eastern Kentucky. During the American Civil War, the region that is now Knott County, Kentucky, which was originally, like I said before, originally part of Letcher, Perry, and Floyd, was a highly active corridor for Confederate cavalry raids, local partisan guerrillas, and bushwhackers. Can you imagine a bunch of soldiers coming in and burning your house and taking everything that you had? The rugged Appalachian terrain and isolated valleys like Troublesome Creek made the area prime territory for irregular warfare, including raiding and plundering. The most notable Confederate forces to pass through and forage in this specific region were led by General John Hunt Morgan. The June 1864 last raid. During his final chaotic raid into Kentucky, Morgan's cavalry entered the state and moved directly through the Forks of the Troublesome, which is where Hyman stands at today. As noted by historical indicators, Morgan's commands during these late war raids suffered from a lack of discipline. His men heavily plundered local communities for horses, food, supplies, earning them a reputation among Union-leaning locals as pillagers and raiders. Because there were no official permanent military bases in the area, the local population was frequently terrorized by irregular partisan bands. In response to Confederate irregulars and raiders using the valley as a hiding place, Union forces launched counter-raids. A notable engagement occurred when a detachment of the Union's 45th Kentucky Infantry ambushed a Confederate camp near the mouth of Troublesome Creek. The Union soldiers routed the Confederates, capturing 16 prisoners, 24 horses, and arms, before chasing the retreating rebels further up the creek into what is now Knott County. Neighborhoods were deeply fractured. Prominent local figures like Peyton Duke, who later donated the land for the town of Hindman, served in the Confederate Army and was eventually captured and sent to a Union prison camp. The lack of strong state authority in the mountains meant that both official Confederate cavalry units and lawless bushwhackers frequently took livestock, they took crops, and valuables from the civilian population under the guise of the war effort. I found William Huff, the author of this Civil War ghost story, on Find a Grave. He was born October 1849 and he died January 13, 1930. Burial in the Huff Cemetery at Hughesville, here in Floyd County. The parents of him and his brother Charles Huff, and Charles was a victim of the pillagers, and they almost killed him by hanging. Their parents were Thomas William Huff Jr. and Phoebe Hamilton Huff. Charles was born April the 26th, 1836, passed away April the 11th, 1917. He is buried in Naples, not Italy, but Greenup County, Kentucky. His spouse was Elizabeth Ann Boggs Huff. Charles is listed as living in Letcher County on the 1860 census in Whitesburg.
Hold your fire!